Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Today, we've got a fascinating stack of material here. We're plunging headfirst into the world of Scotch whiskey, specifically looking at Balvenie. It's one of Speyside's most respected single malts, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. A benchmark for many.
Right. So our mission today is really to unpack what's behind Balvenie's reputation. I mean, how does a distillery manage to be so dedicated to these really old traditions? They call it slow craft, right?
That's the term, yeah.
But then at the same time, they're pioneers. They've introduced major innovations in how whiskey is matured. It seems like a contradiction almost. We want to figure out that balancing act.
And it's a balance that starts on very solid ground. You have to remember, Balvenie was founded way back in 1892.
1892, okay.
By William Grant. Now, he's a legend in Dufftown, which is like the absolute heartland of Scottish distilling. And what's interesting, he'd actually founded Glenfiddich just the year before.
Wow, really? Back-to-back giants.
Exactly. And the name Balvenie, it comes from Balvenie Castle, which is right nearby. So it's deeply rooted in that Speyside history and landscape.
Okay, let's get into that slow craft idea then, because honestly, it sounds incredibly expensive today. You know, with modern distilling being so streamlined, most places outsource everything they can.
They really do.
So what specific kind of old school things does Balvenie still do that makes them stand out?
Right. This is where you really see the commitment and the cost, like you said. It's about vertical integration, basically controlling almost everything. And it comes down to, well, mainly three key roles, things that are super rare now.
Okay, like what?
First off, they're one of the very, very few distilleries left in Scotland that still grows some of its own barley. And crucially, they malt it themselves on a traditional malting floor.
Wait, they malt their own barley?
Yeah.
On a floor? That sounds like immense work.
It is. Think about the logistics, the labor cost. Most distilleries gave that up decades ago. They just buy and malt because it's way cheaper, much easier.
So why do it? Is it purely about the flavor? Or is there something else, like a philosophy behind it?
Well, flavor control is definitely part of it, yeah. But it's also about preserving those traditional skills, you know? And that philosophy, it carries through to the other two unique things they do.
Okay.
They have their own team of coopers, actual barrel makers on site.
Coopers?
Yep.
So they're not just buying casks, they're building and fixing them.
Exactly. Maintaining them, repairing them, charring them just right, making sure every cask meets their standard. It ensures consistency. And the third thing, maybe even more surprising, they have their own coppersmiths.
Coppersmiths. To look after the stills, the big copper pots.
Uh-huh. Those massive copper stills and condensers, it's vital because the shape of the copper, even tiny bits of wear and tear, it influences the spirit's final character.
Right, the interaction between the spirit vapor and the copper.
Precisely. Having an in-house team means they get immediate meticulous care. They ensure the stills basically function identically, day in, day out. It's that intense level of hands-on manual craft. That's the slow craft.
And all that effort, it comes through in the taste.
That's the idea. It maintains that core Balvenie style, you know. It's typically sweet, fruity, a bit spicy, always the signature honey, vanilla, and oak notes. Very consistent over the years.
And speaking of consistency over years, there's one person who's been central to that, isn't there? David C. Stewart.
Oh, absolutely essential. You can't talk about Balvenie's character without mentioning David Stewart. MBE, no less. He started there back in 1962.
1962, that's over 60 years.
Incredible, isn't it? Decades of experience guiding everything from which casks to pick to exactly when a whiskey is perfectly matured. You can't replicate that kind of long-term vision.
It's amazing. So a place so deeply rooted in these like ancient skills is also the place that came up with one of the biggest changes in modern Scotch. That seems like the real twist here.
That's the fascinating part of this story. They didn't just preserve old ways, they actually shook up the market. Balvenie is widely credited, really, with pioneering cask finishing as a commercial thing. You know, maturing whiskey in two different types of wood.
For mainstream releases, yeah. I remember reading that.
The big moment was the launch of the DoubleWood 12-year-old. That was back in 1993.
Right. Before that, most whiskeys just stayed in one type of barrel their whole life, yeah.
Pretty much. The standard was maybe an ex-bourbon cask or an ex-sherry cask, but not usually both sequentially. What Balvenie did was take their whiskey, matured for, say, 12 years in traditional American bourbon casks.
Which gives it that vanilla, honey sort of character.
Exactly. And then they moved it into European sherry casks for a final shorter period, a finish. maybe only a few months.
But those few months make a huge difference for them.
A fundamental difference. It transforms the flavor.
Ah.
The DoubleWood became so popular because, well, you got the best of both worlds. The classic Speyside notes from the first cask, plus all that rich, dried fruit, spice, and depth from the sherry finish.
It really set a trend. And they built on that, didn't they? Using different finishes for other expressions.
They did. Once they proved the concept worked, they basically used finishing to create their whole core range. It showed how versatile the technique could be.
Okay, let's look at some examples because the source material mentions a few. How about the Caribbean cask, 14-year-old, finishing in rum casks? That sounds quite different.
Oh, it pushes the profile in a completely different direction, much more towards like tropical sweetness. The rum casks bring in layers of toffee, brown sugar, even molasses.
Molasses, interesting.
Yeah, and those distinctive tropical fruit notes start coming through, pineapple, mango, that kind of thing. But it still manages to be really smooth and creamy on the palate. It's a clever twist.
And then for something maybe richer, darker, the PortWood 21-year-old, finish in port pipes.
Right, port casks. That adds another dimension entirely. You get these lovely notes of red berries, almost like jam, some nuttiness, maybe dark chocolate too. It just shows how they can use these different woods to stretch the flavor profile while keeping that essential Balvenie maltiness at the core.
It's like controlled experimentation.
That's a good way to put it. It's artistry in maturation, not just aging.
And that artistry, maybe it reaches its peak with some of their more limited collectible stuff like the Ton 1509 series. What's that about?
Ah, the tons. Yeah, that's sort of Balvenie showing off their blending skills at the highest level. It's not just a batch, it's more like an orchestration. They select whiskeys from a whole bunch of different casks.
How many casks are we talking?
It varies. Batch 4 apparently used 23 different casks. Batch 7 used 21. These are casks of different ages, different wood types, all from their own warehouses.
So it's a blend of their own single malts.
Precisely. But the really key part is the marrying process. They combine all these selected whiskeys into this huge, specially built marrying vessel, the Ton 1509. Okay?
Yeah.
And the whiskey doesn't just sit there for a day or two. It stays in the Ton for several months. This allows all those different components, all those complex flavors to really integrate and harmonize. It creates this incredible depth and smoothness.
Ah, so it's not just mixing, it's marrying?
Yeah.
Letting them get to know each other?
Exactly. The result, like for batch 7, which was bottled at a pretty punchy 52.4% ABV and non-chill filtered, is known for being incredibly smooth, despite the strength. You still get the Balvenie honey and malt, but with layers of dried fruit, cinnamon, ginger, just real complexity.
That's fascinating. And it contrasts quite sharply with their single barrel releases, right?
Yeah.
Where they go in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
Instead of intricate blending, the single barrel is all about purity and individuality. These are whiskeys drawn from just one single cask, no blending, no marrying.
And they do these at different ages, 12, 15, 25 years old.
I mean, that's right. And the whole point is that every single cask is unique. How the wood interacted with the spirit, the microclimate in the warehouse, it all makes a difference. So each bottling from a single barrel is slightly different.
So you could buy 2 bottles of 15-year-old single barrel, and they might taste noticeably different.
Potentially, yes. Especially if they're from different cask numbers or vintages. The source material mentions some examples, like sought-after 15-year-olds from casks filled in, say, 1979 or 1980. It's like capturing a specific moment in time in one barrel.
A snapshot. Before we broaden out, just quickly, they even dabble in peat, which is unusual for Speyside, the week of peat.
Right. That's another sign they aren't afraid to experiment, even using their traditional setup. Remember the malting floor we talked about? Well, for 1 week a year, they use peat smoke during the drying process for the barley. They use Speyside peat, which is generally gentler than Islay peat. It adds this subtle smokiness to their usually unpeated whiskey. The 14-year-old week of peat at 48.3% ABV, it's a really interesting example of how that slow craft control lets them innovate safely.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit.
Yeah.
The source material also gives us this broader picture, the whole world of spirits that Balvenie exists within.
Yeah, and that context is actually really important for understanding Balvenie itself. Think about it, their big innovation, cask finishing. That was only possible because there was a global market supplying things like sherry butts, port pipes, rum barrels.
Ah, right. They needed access to those different cask types.
Exactly. And you see this whole ecosystem reflected in specialized retailers. The source mentioned one founded by Ulrich Bertelsen and Henrik Olsen back in 2012. These places don't just sell Balvenie.
No, they sell everything. Scottish, Japanese, Irish, American whiskey,
Mm-hmm.
even Danish whiskey, apparently. And loads of fortified wines, too. Port, sherry, and all its styles.
All the styles. Tawny, ruby, vintage port, Amontillado, Fino, Oloroso sherry, you name it. Plus, vermouth, Madeira, absinthe, cachaça, calvados, even things like sake and mead. And the gear to go with it, like specialized tasting glasses.
It shows the sheer breadth of the enthusiast market out there.
Absolutely. And it's a market fueled by activities like distillery tours, guided tastings, masterclasses, big festivals, things that cater to everyone from curious beginners to serious collectors. Balvenie, with its quality and story, sits very comfortably at the premium end of all that.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Balvenie. It's still family-owned, part of William Grant & Sons, known for incredible consistency, really.
Definitely.
And they achieve that partly by sticking to these incredibly laborious, almost archaic manual skills, the malting floor, the coopers, the coppersmiths, that whole slow craft thing. But at the very same time, their biggest claim to fame, arguably, is pioneering cask finishing with the DoubleWood. Massive commercial innovation.
It really was. Which brings us to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to chew on based on what we've covered. Balvenie's global reputation. A huge part of that was built on the DoubleWood technique. It changed the game.
Yeah, real market innovation.
But they also pour resources into preserving skills like floor malting, skills most others abandoned as uneconomical. So what do you think is the truer reflection of Balvenie's core identity? Is it the preservation of those ancient crafts? Or is it the revolutionary market-savvy use of cask finishing? It really highlights that fascinating tension, doesn't it, between tradition and progress in the world of top-tier spirits.